Hello! In this video, we will take a look at some of the very best and most powerful modern warships, such as missile destroyers, frigates, and cruisers, and compare their capabilities. With the exception of aircraft carriers, they have a completely different role and should be compared in another video. Basically, there are four major primary roles in naval warfare that ships are built around to serve as a purpose, such as anti-ship, anti-submarine, anti-air defense, and land attack. These are the primary roles that define the armament and strength of a ship type: to fight against enemy ships and submarines, to provide anti-air support for other units in a formation, or to attack enemy land targets from far away distance. But it is important to note that most of the countries in the world don't even have multi-purpose destroyers to fulfill all of these four primary roles at the same time. Instead, most nations only have frigates that are only specialized to serve one mission or two at most, usually air defense, but are less capable in the other roles. There are only very few navies in the world that actually have true multi-purpose destroyers which can serve all four main missions at the same time, including the USA, China, Russia, and South Korea. Some good examples are the US Arleigh Burke destroyer and the US Ticonderoga missile cruiser, the Chinese Type 055 and Type 052D destroyer, the South Korean KDX-3 destroyer, the Russian Admiral Gorshkov frigate, and the Naval destroyer. Of course, most countries in the world don't even need a full multi-role destroyer. It always depends on each country's navy doctrine and political goals. Multi-role destroyers are a lot more expensive, carrying much more variety of weapons, equipment, and radars. Not all countries have the money to afford such expensive ship types. It's the same with aircraft carriers too. So for most other countries, frigates and submarines will be sufficient enough. Most nations only possess a green water navy for coastal defense to protect the border. Only a limited number of nations actually have a real blue water capable navy, with the capability to operate far from home for a prolonged time, to project power around the globe, such as the USA, Great Britain, France, Russia, and China. Naval guns today have become only a secondary role. The primary weapons instead are missiles. For anti-ship purpose, most ship types commonly only carry a few slow-flying, subsonic, anti-ship missiles as standard weaponry, such as the Harpoon or Exocet, which were quite effective in the 1980s. But against modern warships that have sophisticated radar sensors and lots of defense systems today, the subsonic missile has become largely obsolete. So for effective anti-ship capability, the platform needs to carry at least a dozen supersonic anti-ship missiles. Some good examples are the Russian and Indian BrahMos missile or the Chinese YJ-12 supersonic anti-ship missile, which are much more dangerous than the common slow-flying subsonic missiles used by most other countries. Some ships can also use their anti-air missiles for anti-ship purpose, dramatically boosting the anti-ship capability, such as the RIM 66 SM2 and the more advanced RIM 174 SM6 missiles, which use active radar and thermal tracking, so they can be used beyond the horizon as a long-range and supersonic anti-ship missile to attack enemy targets from hundreds of kilometers away. Although they carry only a relatively light warhead, but since they strike the target with supersonic speed, they are very hard to defend against. And as they are much smaller than conventional big anti-ship missiles, that means the ship can carry a lot more of these missiles, so it can be used to overwhelm and saturate the target. Especially when multiple ships in a group work together, they can launch hundreds of SM2 and SM6 missiles in waves to easily overwhelm and destroy any targets. And even then, it is still not guaranteed to actually get through the enemy's defense system, as most modern anti-air missiles can even intercept supersonic anti-ship missiles too. Most modern ships are able to engage and intercept multiple targets at the same time, so even saturation attacks using many missiles at the same time does not guarantee to defeat the enemy's defense system, unless it literally runs out of ammunition. But this just shows how much the air defense and self-defense capabilities of modern warships has advanced. As much as the anti-ship weapons have advanced, so have the defensive capabilities too. During the Cold War, most ships used missile launcher rails that needed to reload every time after a missile was launched, drastically limiting the number of targets that could be engaged at the same time, which made it difficult to defend against multiple missile attacks. But today, most modern warships have a vertical launch system that can shoot multiple missiles at the same time. This allows to intercept multiple targets quickly, which increases the defensive capabilities of modern warships drastically and makes it very difficult for the enemy to get through the missile defense. But with new advanced stealth technology, even the slow-flying subsonic missiles might become very dangerous once again, such as the US LRASM or the Joint Naval Strike Missile. Because with advanced stealth characteristics, they are very difficult to detect by radar. Only thermal optic sights are able to detect those missiles at very close range only, which makes stealth missiles very dangerous, even if they are slow-flying. That's why most Russian naval ships have a defense weapon station that uses a thermal tracking device, which can detect and intercept even stealthy anti-ship missiles, even if the ship's radar can't detect it. The biggest threat to modern warships, however, are the new hypersonic missiles, since they are very difficult to intercept, even for the best defense systems, such as the Russian Zircon missile used on the Admiral Gorshkov class frigate, which is one of the first ships in the world to use hypersonic anti-ship missiles in active service, giving this ship very powerful offensive capabilities. And this is where the laser comes into play, because nothing is faster than the speed of light. For effective air defense and self-defense, a powerful radar sensor and lots of long-range, medium-range and short-range defense systems are required to effectively protect the own ship and other friendly ships in a formation. The more missiles a ship can carry, the better. And in the future, the laser weapon will be integrated on many ships. Currently, the USA, Britain, Germany and Turkey are some of the first countries that are testing the laser on their ships right now. But of course, there are still other threats to warships than missiles. Even more dangerous are silent submarines, as they are difficult to detect and defend against. This is why it's important for effective anti-submarine operations to have a helicopter on board and a long-range anti-submarine rocket is needed, which will drop the torpedo over the expected enemy submarine at far distance. And of course, a powerful sonar is needed to detect the enemy submarine at long range. This gives the ship great ability to hunt and destroy submarines from a safe distance. Also, a good anti-torpedo defense system should be installed too, to protect the ship against potential enemy torpedo attacks, either by soft kill system, luring the torpedo away from the ship, or by hard kill system, destroying the torpedo before it can hit the ship. This increases survivability of the ship and improves the effectiveness in anti-submarine mission. But most ships don't even have long-range anti-submarine rockets, but instead only short-range torpedo tubes and perhaps some short-range rocket launchers that can only be used at very close range when the enemy submarine is already too close, which makes most ships very vulnerable from enemy submarine attacks. Most ships have only a helicopter and some close-range weapons to defend against submarines. But helicopters take some time to ready and launch, and they can only carry 1 or 2 torpedoes maximum, which makes most ships very weak against enemy submarines. Only a few navies, such as the Japanese and US Navy, have long-range anti-submarine torpedo missiles that can be launched immediately, and at a safe distance from the enemy submarine, which gives them much better anti-submarine capabilities than most other navies. Especially the Japanese Navy, as it was specifically intended for hunting down Russian submarines in the Japan Sea. But also the US Navy, Russia, South Korea and China also have long-range anti-submarine rockets. Other good examples are the Chinese Type 055, the Type 052D, and the Type 054. the South Korean KDX-3, the Russian Admiral Gorshkov class frigate, and of course the US Arleigh Burke destroyer and Ticonderoga class cruiser. But modern submarines also have good anti-torpedo defense systems of their own, protecting them against anti-submarine torpedoes, so it's not very easy to kill them, even when they are detected. That is why submarines will always remain a very serious threat. But for deep land strike attacks, the ship needs to carry long-range cruise missiles that can strike targets deep into enemy territory to support ground attack operations. But only a very limited number of navies have land attack cruise missiles, such as the USA, Russia, China, South Korea, and France. Frigates are generally focused on air defense and close escort support, while modern destroyers are typically more focused on multi-role offensive missions, including cruise missiles for deep land strike attack. But the most important factor is the electronic warfare suite. This defines the capability of a ship to function in combat against electronic warfare jamming. No matter how many missiles a ship can carry, if the radar gets jammed by enemy electronic countermeasures, the ship will be blind and defenseless, and cannot function properly. The best way to effectively protect against enemy electronic attack is by the use of an active phased array radar, which is the most sophisticated and most advanced type of radar system in the world, even more advanced than the Spy-1 radar of the Aegis combat system used on the Arleigh Burke destroyer. This is why a lot of countries are using the active phased array radar. For example, Germany with its F-124 Sachsen class frigate, Great Britain with the Type 45, India with the Kolkata class destroyer, China with the Type 055 and Type 052D destroyer, and Russia with the Admiral Gorshkov class. It offers much better immunity against electronic countermeasures than compared to the older passive phased array, which is still widely used on many other ships, including the Arleigh Burkes. The British Type 45 is officially classified as destroyer, and although it surely is one of the most advanced ships, it is only for air defense, nothing else. It has no anti-submarine missiles, no land attack missiles, and the Harpoon anti-ship missiles are pretty much useless against any modern warship's defense. And even in the anti-air sector, it is not really that much better than any other modern frigates. Some other ships have just as good air defense and self-defense capabilities as the Type 45, but in addition also very powerful anti-ship missiles and even anti-submarine missiles too, such as the Indian Kolkata class destroyer, which is one of the most powerful modern destroyer in the world. It has the same air defense capability as the British Type 45, but with the addition of also having 16 very powerful supersonic, BrahMos, anti-ship missiles on top of that, which gives this ship a very powerful punch. But unfortunately, it does not have long-range anti-submarine missiles, only short-range rocket launchers, which makes it very vulnerable from enemy submarine attack. Other ships worth mentioning is the German F-124 Sachsen class. It has one of the best self-defense capabilities with the use of the RIM 162 ESSM and 2 ram launchers on each side. And with the SM-2, also a very powerful anti-ship capability as well. It was one of the first ships in the world to have an active electronically scanned array radar, giving it unique capabilities at that time. The ESSM and SM-2 will take care of any long-range and medium-range threat, while the RIM 116 ram launchers take care of anything that gets too close. Each launcher holds 21 missiles, which can intercept even supersonic anti-ship missiles. But unfortunately, it also does not have any long-range anti-submarine missiles, only short-range torpedoes. But at least the torpedoes have the ability to intercept and destroy enemy torpedoes, giving this ship a hard kill protection system which increases the survivability against enemy submarine attacks. Right now, This ship serves as a testing platform for the laser weapon, to protect the ship against hypersonic missiles too. Other ships with the similar capabilities are the Dutch
De Zevenprovinciën
class and the Danish Iverhootveld class frigates, which use the same ESA radar type as the German Sachsen, and have the same armament, except for the ram launchers. Turkey and Greece mostly use German-made ships and submarines, based on the German Miko frigate and Type 206 submarine. Many other countries use German frigates and submarines such as Algeria, India, Italy, Indonesia, Israel, Chile, Egypt, Argentina, Portugal, Brazil, Peru, South Africa, Poland, South Korea, New Zealand, Ecuador and Venezuela, making Germany the largest exporter of naval ships in the world. But at least Turkey is trying to become more independent now to produce its own ships, and has already presented some very interesting and very promising frigate concepts for the future. South Korea is also one of a few nations that has a true multi-role, all-purpose destroyer, the KDX-3, carrying land attack cruise missiles, long-range anti-submarine missiles, and with the SM-6, a very powerful long-range anti-ship missile too. It also has a ram launcher at the front, in case anything gets through the long-range missile defense. The KDX-3 is one of the most powerful top-line destroyer in the world, only matched by the Chinese Type 055 and Type 052D, and the Russian Admiral Gorshkov class frigate. The Spanish F-100 frigate,
Álvaro de Bazán,
and the Australian Hobart class used both an Aegis-based design from the American Arleigh Burke class, similar to the South Korean KDX-3. They also have the SM-2, giving these ships very powerful air defense, self-defense and anti-ship capability. But unfortunately, they don't have any long-range anti-submarine torpedo missile, so they are not as effective against enemy submarines. Japan has the third largest destroyer fleet in the world, after the United States and China. In total, Japan has 28 modern missile destroyers. The Kongo, Atago, Maya, Asahi, Akizuki, Takanami, and Murasame-class destroyers all have lots of long-range anti-submarine missiles to effectively hunt down enemy submarines. And with the SM-2, a very great air defense and anti-ship capability as well. The newest Japanese destroyer, Maya, also has the RIM 174 SM-6, giving it very powerful long-range anti-ship capability too. The only thing that is missing is a land attack missile, but other than that, they are true multi-role destroyers. Russia is currently in the process of updating most of its navy. 10 years ago, it still used mostly outdated ships such as the Sovereign destroyers, and even though it used to be one of the most powerful ships when it entered service in the 1980s, but for today's combat it is totally underpowered. It was the most powerful destroyer class during the Cold War. Using low-flying, supersonic, anti-ship missiles, it would be able to destroy any U.S. Navy ship at that time if it got into missile range. Even the best American ship at that time, the Ticonderoga cruiser, would have great difficulties defending against the Sovereign supersonic, low-flying missiles. But today, the radar sensors and missiles are very outdated because it has never been upgraded since its introduction in the 1980s. It still uses a single-rail missile launcher, which was good enough during the Cold War, but for modern standards, it is a big disadvantage, not having a vertical launch system. Which means that the Sovereign's defense is very poor for today's standards, so it cannot effectively defend itself against saturation attacks from SM-2 and SM-6 missiles. At least the Chinese version of the Sovereign was upgraded recently with a new vertical launch system, boosting its defensive capabilities. But the Russian Sovereign never got any upgrades, so it is still very vulnerable now. But at least the supersonic anti-ship missiles are still a very powerful offensive capability if it gets close enough to enemy targets. But recently, Russia introduced some new types of guided missile frigates, such as the Grigorovich-class guided missile frigate, which can be considered as a further development of the Sovremeny. The Grigorovich has a vertical launch system, something that the Sovremeny misses. It also has the very powerful supersonic Onyx anti-ship missiles. But unfortunately, it still uses old radar tech. This is because Russia cannot afford too many expensive ships. Modern radars are very complex and expensive, so Russia tries to build the ships more cheap and affordable. But at least the newest Russian frigate, the Admiral Gorshkov class, finally has an active phased array radar, being the first Russian ship to have such a modern advanced radar, giving Russia one of the best capabilities. The Admiral Gorshkov class is officially classified as a frigate by Russia, but it has the capabilities of a destroyer. It is one of the first ships to use a hypersonic anti-ship missile, giving this ship a very powerful offensive capability. It can also carry very long-range anti-submarine missiles and land attack cruise missiles as well, making this ship a true all-round multi-mission destroyer. On top of that, it also has anti-torpedo hard-kill protection system, effectively protecting this ship against enemy submarine attacks, giving it very good anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The Kirov-class heavy missile cruiser is the most powerful conventional warship that is not an aircraft carrier. It has 20 powerful long-range and supersonic anti-ship missiles, P-700, to destroy U.S. Navy carrier battle groups. One single hit could already be enough to cripple and destroy any ship. It also has a very powerful sonar for detecting underwater submarines and a very long-range anti-submarine torpedo missile. It serves as the fleet flagship next to the Kuznetsov aircraft carrier, protecting the fleet against any attacks. Right now it is being upgraded to become even more powerful, with new radars and sensors and new missiles. The S-300 will be replaced by the more better performing S-400, increasing the range to 400 kilometers. And the 20 shipwreck missiles will be replaced with 80 new Onyx missiles, giving it 4 times as much anti-ship missiles as before. When the upgrade is complete, it will once again be the most powerful warship in the world, just like it was in the 1980s. With so many very long-range anti-ship missiles, it will be even more powerful than a U.S. Navy supercarrier. China currently has the second largest destroyer fleet in the world, only matched by the USA and Japan. The Type 055 Renhai has the YJ-18 anti-ship missile, which is a copy of the Russian Caliber anti-ship missile. It reaches hypersonic speed at the terminal phase when it approaches enemy targets, while flying very low, making this missile extremely dangerous to any ship. It also uses highly advanced ESA radar sensors in combination with the long-range HHQ-9 missile, which uses active radar guidance. And it has long-range anti-submarine torpedo missiles and land attack missiles too. The Type 055 Renhai is currently one of the most powerful destroyer. But the United States still has the largest navy in the world. And even though the Ticonderoga class missile cruiser is quite old now, it is still one of the most powerful ships today. The Ticonderoga was originally built during the Cold War to protect the aircraft carriers against Russian bomber attack waves, effectively protecting the carriers and other friendly ships in the group against enemy missile attacks. Today, with the SM-6 missile, the Ticonderoga has the capability to easily destroy most enemy ships at long range. The SM-6 can also be guided by aircraft or helicopter radars using a data link, so it can intercept even low-flying missile at very long range if target information is provided by another source. Usually, a ship can only engage targets that its own radars can see, which is a big problem against low-flying missiles, as they fly under the radar horizon, limiting the effective engagement range. But with the SM-6, the Ticonderoga can intercept low-flying missiles, even beyond the ship's own visual radar range, which gives the ship extremely good fleet protection capabilities. The Arleigh Burke is the most mass-produced modern destroyer in the world, with currently over 70 units produced and 20 more under construction or planned. The Arleigh Burke was the first true multi-role ship in the 1990s that combined all four primary roles together: anti-air defense, anti-submarine, anti-ship, and land attack. It was the most advanced destroyer when it entered service in the early 1990s. Many foreign ship designs are based on the Arleigh Burke, including the Chinese copies which became the Type 052. The Zumwalt was the first U.S. Navy ship that incorporated active phased array radar instead of the old passive phased array radars used on the Arleigh Burke and Ticonderoga. The active phased array is much more capable and more immune to electronic jamming than the old passive phased array. The Zumwalt was designed to have a highly advanced 155mm gun with rocket-assisted projectiles for very long-range gunfire to hit targets at 150 kilometers, which is similar to missile range. But unfortunately, the cost per projectile increased exponentially as the number of units in the Zumwalt class was reduced from 32 to just 3 units. The cost per shell grew to $1 million, so the program was cancelled, which leaves the Zumwalt without ammunition because of its empty cannons, which is a very big problem for the Zumwalt. What makes it even worse is the fact that the Zumwalt also does not have the SM-2 nor the SM-6 missiles, which would at least give it good anti-ship capability. But instead it only has the medium-range RIM 162 ES-SM, which is only effective to 50 kilometers. But at least the new RIM 162 ES-SM version will be upgraded to have also anti-ship capability too, and since it can be quad-packed, it gives the Zumwalt a lot of missiles to shoot, although at a lesser range. But at least it still has the Tomahawk cruise missiles and long-range anti-submarine rockets, so it is still very effective for anti-submarine missions and land attack mission too. The Zumwalt is one of the most advanced destroyer per design, at least on paper, but with the armament available right now, it is greatly inferior to the latest Russian and Chinese destroyers. But the good news is that it will soon receive a new replacement for the empty guns. The third and last unit of the class under construction will receive a new railgun when it's completed. This will make the Zumwalt the first destroyer in active service with a railgun in the near future. This makes cannons great again, which will give the Zumwalt very powerful long-range anti-ship capabilities, even without the use of any missiles, since there is no defensive system that can effectively defend against this weapon. So at least in the future, the Zumwalt will be a very capable destroyer. Many other navies will follow this trend in the future. Other countries who already have a railgun are China and Turkey. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. What did you like the most? What did you find most interesting? Let me know in the comments, and have a nice day.